In the 1950s, people began to get crafty with their fashion, particularly with a seemingly innocuous accessory, the handkerchief. But these were not just arbitrary fashion statements. They were, in fact, coded messages. Welcome to the world of Hanky Code, where the innocent handkerchief transformed into a secret Morse code of sexuality. This tale begins, surprisingly, in hardware stores across America. Amidst the din of hammers and saws and paint cans, a quiet revolution was taking shape. Hankies, once present only to assist in minor cleaning tasks, began to snuggle into back pockets, fluttering subtly like colorful flags. Suddenly, sturdy carpenters and flushed florists alike had a secret language sewn into their back pockets, a language known as the Hanky Code. It should be noted that at this point in our story, nothing is ever as it appears to be. Now, you might be asking yourself, why handkerchiefs? Why not something a bit more impressive like scarves or something with genuine flair like berets? Well, the answer lies in the charm of subtlety. Handkerchiefs were common, everyday items, petite squares of fabric that quietly melded into the choreography of daily life. Yet within their threads were woven the whispers of forbidden desires, secret identities, and most importantly, a code that had the power to unite a community. Let's take color into consideration here. The Hanky Code relied heavily on chromatic diversity. Black for S&M, green for hustlers or Johns depending on which pocket it resided in, while red screamed out for a certain fetish that might give even the Marquis de Sade pause. Yes, my dear sleepy listeners, every hue corresponded to a different sexual interest or identity, turning the back pockets of many into a field of flagging opportunities. But oh, dear listener, it wasn't just about the color of the handkerchief. The position of these colorful cloths was also very crucial. A hanky worn on the left side indicated a certain role, while the same hanky worn on the right hinted at the opposite. If you've ever been to a formal dinner and fretted over which side to place your fork, imagine the pressure on these clandestine communicators. What makes our journey through the Hanky Code even more fascinating is that all this subtext, the rainbow of colors and positions, was hidden in plain sight. It's like a secret message in a fantasy novel, the invisible ink gleaming only for those who know how to hold it up to the light. The history of the Hanky Code reads like a shrouded superhero saga from the 1950s, full of whispers, secret identities, and silent harmony. But remember, dear listener, it isn't all just subplots and side colors. It's an embodiment of a community coming together, using the weapon of fashion in their soft rebellion, building connections in corner shops and hardware stores, in the delicate crevices of secrecy that slowly expanded into acceptance. As our eyes get heavy and dreams begin, we must not let our minds wander too far. The legacy of Hanky Code is still with us today. Its influence like the softest thread in the vibrant tapestry of LGBTQ history. If these stories help you drift off, please subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world to me. And before you fully fade into dreamland, I would love to know where you're listening from and what time it is there. There's a gentle breeze fluttering in from the next chapter of our story. We shall revisit the Hanky Code, but this time in the midst of the disco-dazzled 70s. We'll travel together to the vibrant halls of nightclub culture, where glimmering disco balls cast a sparkling veil over the shifting Hanky Code. Until then, close your eyes and let the entrancing whispers of history lull you into your dreams. The second chapter of our historical bedtime story finds us nestled in the vibrantly risque decade of the 1950s. Picture the scene in your mind. Blossoming rock and roll, bobby socks paired with neat pencil skirts, and an under-the-radar language crafted from handkerchiefs. Who needs words when a piece of fabric can whisper a sonnet into the wind? That's right, dear listener. There was an entirely different language being spoken, draped, and brandished in the world of the 1950s. One cycling around the culture of the LGBTQ+ community. Just think of it, friends, as a type of sartorial Morse code. Well, color me intrigued, and incidentally, that's precisely what the people of that clandestine world did with the Hanky Code. Now, don't go thinking they were wearing these handkerchiefs on their heads or tucked into their shirt pockets. Oh no, the Hanky Code was all about a flamboyant flash of fabric peeping out from a back pocket. So what did these seemingly innocent swatches of cloth actually signify? Well, dear listener, these gallant handkerchiefs were much more than mere nose-blowing accessories. They proudly declared one's sexual preferences to those in the proverbial know. Veritable rainbow of meanings, each color and pattern subtly hinting at specific preferences, allowing community members to silently signal one another. Fascinating, isn't it? Let's take the classic black handkerchief, sturdy and unpretentious. In the Hanky Code, this was like sending a tweet exclaiming, "SM enthusiast here." Meanwhile, a lovely lavender handkerchief fluttering out of the right pocket would whisper sweetly, "I have a thing for drag queens." Need more evidence to combat your incredulous eyebrows? There even exists a Hanky Code chart online, lovingly maintained by ardent enthusiasts, trailing back to these utilize the utile days. In this colorful sartorial semaphore, not only did the color play the role of an eloquent lighthouse, but the handkerchief's position was vital too. Consider it akin to placing the stamp upside down on an envelope. It silently screamed a message to the discerning party. Placing a hanky in the left pocket meant one was more inclined to play the active role, the doer, for lack of a better term. Conversely, showing off your hanky in the right pocket announced your affinity for being the passive partner, the doe, if you will. And oh, the twinkling mischief in swapping the hankies from one pocket to another. It was an era when nonchalance met nuance, surprise. This unsung fashion statement trickled its way into the 1960s and the 1970s as well, with hanky nights and vibrant pride parades. With the rise of the gay liberation movement, the Hanky Code did receive its moment in the limelight. Filled with historical humor, this sartorial secret had an air of audacious charm, almost coy in its cheekiness. A silent narrative, told not by whispers, not by motions, but by the casual drape of the humble handkerchief. Swanky, isn't it? This bedtime soiree in the land of vintage secrets has been studded with starlight, humor, and intricacies. The fascinating journey of the Hanky Code, from its hidden whispers in the 1950s to its radiant curtain call in the color-strewn pride parades, is a testimony to the vibrance and resilience of the LGBTQ+ community. This was a time when secrets had a color and whispers had a flavor. So next time you look at a hanky, dear listener, remember it was once a part of an eye-catching conspiracy of color and charisma. As we nestle into this cradle of nighttime whimsy for a dash more of these quaint tidbits, rest your eyes and imagine a world where the unsaid was resplendently louder than the said. And in our dreams tonight, let us dream of a colorful parade of handkerchiefs dancing in rhythmic unity, carrying stories of courage, cheekiness, and dynamic camouflage. Stay with me, dear listener, for the night is still young, and our journey into history's more vibrant mysteries has only just begun. As we turn the pages to our next chapter, let us brace ourselves to dive deeper into the kaleidoscope of secrets the years have exquisitely wrapped, waiting in hushed whispers for the moonlight to unravel them. Settle in as we sip a bit further into our historical dream cocktail and savor the sweet warmth of the beautifully cloaked tales yet to unfold. Imagine, it's 1951. You're in a misty San Francisco night, the fog diffusing the glow from the lampposts. This chill to your bones kind of weather is bizarre for the summer season, but you don't mind it. You're donning a newly purchased grey fedora, a splendid match with your charcoal-colored overcoat. But what truly sets you apart on this anonymous evening is that checker-patterned hanky hanging out of your back pocket. Ah yes, the humble handkerchief. Who would have thought its various colors and patterns held the key to a flamboyantly distinctive, covert communication system? An everyday item tugged away in pockets, and up sleeves had been taken as a canvas to weave subtle messages. This dear sleepy listeners, is the curious case of the Hanky Code. Picture it as a sort of fashion-based Morse code only the savviest amongst us would perceive, with the threat of being ostracized, or worse, ostrich-sized. I assure you, no ostriches were harmed in the making of this history lesson. Subcultures in the 50s didn't openly express their identity as one would today. Thus arose the necessity of this pocket kerchief cryptography. Some may argue that these audacious pocket accessories were also quite practical, given the hand sanitizer shortage of 51, historical fact, but I digress. The intrigue begins with the placement of the hanky. Left or right pocket could dictate a world of difference, like the ancient Romans who preferred their heart on the left and the liver to the right. An anatomical remix, you might say. Similarly, in Hanky Code, left implied one role and right another. Now, wipe that smirk off. It was all serious business as far as the handkerchief wearers were concerned. And then came the grand parade of colors, a regalia of hues unfolded, each proclaiming a distinct persona. A splash of red signified flamboyance, while black indicated discreet desire. Even the checker-patterned hanky had its unique message to convey. A burgundy handkerchief spelled someone as stately as a Victorian mansion, while yellow hinted at, let's just say, a sunflower in the party. Yes, sunflower. Picture your history teacher trying to explain this, and you might understand the sense of amusement I'm attempting to inject here. Now, you're probably picturing individuals walking around like human ROYG color charts. Well, not exactly. Remember, discretion was key in the 50s. A single color was all it took to tell their story while blending into the gray tapestry of the city. And just when you thought we've explored all the facets of Hanky Code, I present the cherry on top, the grand exhibit of patterns. Chevron, paisley, polka dots, solids. Each of these turned the Hanky Code into a dance of mystery and intrigue. Polka dots matched the rhythm of the city. Pulse and stripes. Well, let's assume they indicated a preference for order and symmetry. So there you have it, an entire secret language unfolded from a simple square of cloth. A symbol of brash individuality and discreet communication. Equals parts, practical, whimsical, and mildly hilarious if you see it from a certain angle. The same could be said for most things in history. But as the foggy night gives way to the dawn, let us meander through the historical labyrinth and follow the hanky flutter further into this hidden realm. Picture the day-to-day happenings in these coded exchanges, the subtle glances and knowing smiles. And let's chase the checker-patterned handkerchief, folded and pocketed with a touch of audacious flair, as it takes us deeper into, well, that, dear listeners, will be a tale for another time. Or better yet, another chapter. The hustle and bustle of urban life in the 1950s, a time when men wore hats, women rocked poodle skirts, and everyone was absolutely certain that uranium glass, ingestibles, and lead-based makeup were excellent ideas. Somewhere, in this vibrant hive of activity, under a feathered veil of mystery, lost in the rhythmic echo of heel clicks on cobblestones, flourished a secret code. A whisper of color and intention rustling softly in the city's undercurrent. The Hanky Code. Now, if you're imagining a group of pirates angrily waving dirty handkerchiefs on street corners, you might need to reel in your imagination a notch. Not that we don't appreciate a good swashbuckling tale here at Boring History Secrets, but this Hanky Code was as far from piracy as one could get, although it did have its share of thrill and adventure, if in a more understated and cultured way. You see, in the restricted social scenario of the 1950s, the gay community found interesting and sneaky ways to communicate and identify each other. Voila! Enters stage left, the Hanky Code, a colorful semaphore of silk and cotton. A gentleman would place a particular color hanky in his back pocket, and presto, he was non-verbally communicating his interests and inclinations to those in the know. A red hanky, for example, indicated a certain robustness, an individual who wasn't afraid to get, comfortable with hands-on activities, which was just as well, considering how often tomatoes would splatter in the popular food fights of the era. Meanwhile, a black hanky was not an expression of ultimate sadness, as one may leap to conclude. Rather, it hinted at a fondness for leather, specifically in the era when crime-fighting comic heroes popularized capes and cowhide like nobody's business. However, not all hanky colors delved into the risque. A white hanky, for example, symbolized an interest in chaste courtship. Imagine placing a fresh white handkerchief in your pocket and waltzing off to a moonlit square for an evening of polite conversation, twinkling stars acting as gentle chaperones. It's just enough to make one feel warm and fuzzy. But of course, it can't all be laughter and easy historical interpretation here. There were some requisite complex historical plot twists. For instance, the very same hanky placed in the left or right pocket conveyed a dramatically different detail to the discerning observer. The left pocket signaled a preference to take the lead in a relationship, while the right indicated a more receptive nature. Yes, the devil was indeed in the details. Who would have thought silk squares could be so verbose? At this point, you may be wondering, where on earth did they source all these differently colored hankies? And the answer to that, dear insomniac history enthusiasts, is the Neckerchief Emporium. No, just kidding. It was actually quite straightforward. Basic hankies were easy to come by in every imaginable color and material. And as for the more adventurous colors and patterns, well, there were always resourceful tailors and seamstresses willing to lend a creative hand for some clandestine crafting. Thus, a subtle display of hanky hues spoke that secret language of camaraderie, solidarity, and silent rebellion against societal norms, each color a talking point, each shade a shared secret. Quite the Victorian espionage film it was, wouldn't you agree? And while the world around stayed oblivious, the Hanky Code continued to flourish in quiet corners, in discreet gestures, and in the soft rustle of fabric. But just remember, not every kerchief you see flapping from a pocket is part of some coded communication. Some are mere victims of a hay fever-prone owner, or perhaps a brave survivor of a wicked chili dog incident. Staying true to subject, history's coded messages were not confined solely to the realm of handkerchiefs. There were secret codes even more cryptic, more layered, whispered gently across artifacts of everyday life. And it's those cryptic ciphers we get to decode next, in the labyrinthine world of, wait for it, Victorian hair jewelry. If you ever find yourself late at night, flicking through a dusty, hidden annal of the 1950s and stumble upon a cryptic drawing of handkerchiefs of various colors neatly aligned and labeled with seemingly arbitrary items, don't panic. You've merely stumbled upon the mysterious Hanky Code, undoubtedly a compelling piece of secret history and fashion history at the same time. It served as a covert language of sorts among members of the homosexual community. Imagine a man in white-collar dress, strolling down the San Francisco streets, one hand tucked comfortably in his pocket, whilst the other nonchalantly swings a lavender handkerchief. To an unsuspecting stranger or a fellow member of the Secret Code Society, this could mean the difference between a passing stranger and a knowledgeable nod of acknowledgement. Here's a gentle nugget of cryptic fun for the curious among you. If our lavender hanky-wielding friend were to place his colourful kerchief in the left pocket of his trousers instead of waving it about, he would be communicating an entirely different message altogether. Now, here's a dash of fun to chew on while we wade. Thought the iconic decades historical ripples. The Hanky Code, humorous to us now, wasn't actually colorblind friendly. Imagine the kerfuffle it would have caused if someone colorblind viewed a lime green hanky and mistook it for a cheerful yellow. Our detective in question may just end up knocking on the wrong door at the right time, or right door at the wrong time. Who's to say? It's a great reminder that even secret language can trip over the cobblestones of inclusivity if it isn't careful. Interestingly enough, the Hanky Code was not all pastel colors and ambiguous winks. It was a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of a community relegated to society's shadowy corners, communicating desires and identities through seemingly innocent accoutrements. Every color and placement, right pocket or left, it bore a different implication. It even became a stamp of silent rebellion, a token of pride and belonging, in a time when acceptance was a rarity and secrecy a necessity. In a sense, these pieces of cloth bore the weight of an entire secret language, speaking volumes in a subtle rustle or dramatic flourish. A hanky could say more about its owner than words ever could. Yet consider the lighter side, the sheer comic potential of it all. Picture this. An unsuspecting tourist ventures into a local thrift shop, decides to spruce up his ensemble with a vibrant bandana, tucks it into his pocket, only to step out and find himself receiving a barrage of knowing smiles from strangers. Oh, the hilarity. A secret code can be quite demanding in its execution. The ever-resourceful folks behind the Hanky Code ensured they had every bit of humor and nuance accommodated, but one must take a moment to appreciate the arduous task of handkerchief procurement. It wasn't as if a rainbow range of handkerchiefs could just be tossed off the shelves at any old haberdashery. These were coded symbols, needing specific meanings attached to each vibrant hue. The poor shopkeeper must have thought he was on the set of a surrealist painting. Now, as we whistle along the nostalgic alleyways of the past, preparing to knock on the door of Chapter 6, don't forget to take a nosy peek into your pockets. Who knows, maybe you're unwittingly a part of this unusual but ingenious code, nestled between the folds of history, one pocket square at a time. Let's tread a bit further down the colorful lanes of yesteryears, shall we? It seems that there's another peculiar trend awaiting us just around the corner. Just when you thought the 50s couldn't get any more technicolored, history shows that it always has another surprise hidden up its well-dressed sleeve. Never underestimate the importance of good accessories. In fact, my dear slumber-seeking historiophiles, accessories can, at times, carry an entire conversation. And so, we step into the twilight of the 1950s, when pie was a breakfast food and television was largely a magic trick performed by antennas. Let us hearken back to a time where the Hanky Code became a secret language for a community under the buffed umbrella of American conformism. Now it's easy to think that men carrying handkerchiefs were dabbing their foreheads in the heat or playing matadors with neighborhood terriers. But oh dear listener, it was so much more than that. Handkerchiefs coded in an array of rainbow hues were quietly folded and slipped into back pockets, left or right, each bearing a meaning we might not suspect at first glance. Subtle, yet effective, like a librarian's pointed stare when the silence is violated. The shades and the pocket placement were the keys to a whole labyrinth of unspoken messages. The tradition harnessed the rainbow spectrum, and we're not talking about the visible light's optic spectrum. Beloved Watsons. Imagine a box of Crayola crayons, each hue a secret password, each color a coded whisper about personal preferences. One could imagine a real-life sherbet spinner, every flavored twirl bearing the secret flavors of one's identity. For instance, wearers of the lavender hanky were indicating an interest in drag, while the black hanky was a bit more, how can one put it lightly, adventurous, hinting at certain walk-on-the-wild-side interests. Now, remember the pocket placement. We have been speaking about the colors, but the code went deeper than a koi fish pond. Left pocket, for example, suggested the person was a seer of vistas, or in simpler terms, they liked to initiate certain, romantic entanglements. Right pocket, on the other hand, hinted that one might be more of a muse in these contexts. It's a lot to think about, isn't it? That each fold, pocket, and hue served as a coded conversation, opening doors to an underground society, keeping the secret safe, and even creating a safe haven within the limitations of its era. To put all this in everyday terms, it was like the 1950s version of swiping right or left, except instead of swiping, you're nodding at a stranger's pocket square. Kind of like a very focused game of I Spy. But, dear sleepyheads, don't run out to check your grandparents' hanky collection. It's important to remember that this was a discrete part of the society, appearing very casual to the untrained eye. One might even say, if their grandparents did have a colorful collection of handkerchiefs, they were most probably using them for the groundbreaking purpose of blowing noses. Yes, world-shattering indeed. In essence, this Hanky Code was a dialogue through silence, a vocabulary of fashion, and quite frankly, a genius display of courage masked under mundane everyday objects. The Hanky Code was a tongue-in-cheek response to the societal constraints of the time, a secret message in a societal bottle thrown into the sea of 1950s conformity. As we gently fold our mental pocket squares and tuck them away, we transition from the colorful hanky symphony of the 50s to another fascinating coded language of history, Morse code. Can you hear it? ... It's time to start a new conversation, my dear listeners, as we dive into the silent whispers of telecommunications infancy. But be forewarned, it's not as quiet as it may sound. Until then, sleep tight in your history blanket and prepare to dream in dashes and dots. Well, welcome back, history snoozers, as we continue our stroll down the lacy, monochrome lanes of the 1950s. If you remember, we've just tiptoed through the rebellious spikes of rock and roll and the comforting thump of beatnik poetry. Let's mosey on further into this fascinating era and examine a rather colorful, intriguing, and rather hanky-doodling code, the Hanky Code. Now, you might be having visions of laundry day and clothespins, but reel it back, because this code had everything to do with communication and little to do with your mum's washing line. Let's paint a bit of a backdrop here. In the 1950s, society was somewhat, let's just say, restricted in its openness about certain topics. Discussions outside the nuclear family box were, well, boxed up, and one of these subjects was homosexuality. In a society girdled by conformity, gay men found themselves stifled. But of course, necessity is the mother of invention, or, in this case, the mother of a delightfully colorful system of communication. This is where our Hanky Code comes into play. It emerged covertly in the San Francisco gay community as a way for gay men to communicate with each other silently, secretly, and, oh my, rather sassily. The handkerchiefs were color-coded and placed in either the left or right pocket of one's jeans, with each color and side spelling out a whole Mendelian dataset of sexual preferences and roles. Picture this. The year is 1958. A slick-haired gentleman, dressed in a maroon suede jacket, strutting down Market Street. A flash of red silk peeks out from his left pocket. Ah, that's right, folks. The red left pocket. Code for... well, I trust you to decipher that one on your own. No need to overshare and get us all blushing before bedtime. Whilst devised in secrecy, the fashion soon became a remarkable show of creative expression and solidarity. Our friend with the red hanky in his pocket understood his community better, and they him. And just for chuckles, imagine going colorblind and waking up with a whole new set of suitors. And remember, the handkerchiefs were not always pocketed. Sometimes they would be worn around the neck or tied onto the wrist. And, for those extravagant days, even draped around the waist or the ankle. Ugh, the Victorian horror. Picture it. Great Aunt Mildred dropping her knitting at the sight of a shocking pink hanky tied subtly around a polite gentleman's calf. And let's take a moment to appreciate the creativity. I mean, there is a silk square for everything. Yellow for water sports enthusiasts, and I'm not talking about jet skis, and hunter green for those gentlemen who preferred their relationships with an earthy-hued tinge. Even the checkerboards and polka dots had special meanings, but those will leave to your dream-filled wanderings to sort out. A code so complex might sound like it required a translator fluent in Morse, Caesar, and Navajo to decipher, but never fear, no Enigma machines were required. The code was done and dusted with just a little know and some observant eyes, making a walk down the street quite the anthropological study. You might remember this chapter the next time you see someone fiddling with a handkerchief. But never fear, these days, one doesn't need a silk square to express their tastes or identity. We have Instagram for that. Yet, in the fabric of history, the Hanky Code has been woven into the embroidered, multi-hued ebony of human invention, a testament to courage, creativity, and yes, the vivid if unassuming, power of pockets. Before we drift off, allow me to gently steer your sleepy imaginations towards the next part of our little journey. If you thought the Hanky Code was an impressive undercover operation, wait until we delve into the hush-hush world of 1950s diners and their own secret lingo. Ever wondered what would happen if you ordered a Noah's Boy with Murphy carrying a wreath? All will be revealed just beyond the edges of the sleep-inducing historical lullaby. Until then, keep those hankies coded and your dreams colorful. Good night. So there we were, smack dab in the middle of the 1950s, a time when the secret, silent language of hanky codes was flourishing. But if you're picturing a rebellious gang of rogue cowboys twirling brightly colored bandanas, I must correct your imaginative inclinations. We're talking about subtly coded messages tucked away in back pockets here. My dear sleep seeker, nothing so flamboyant as crackling campfires and daring cattle drives. After all, this is history, not a John Wayne movie. Nevertheless, let's wind the clock back and dive into these clandestine codes, these colorful conversations stitched right into the fibers of everyday attire. 1950s fashion was lashes deep in conservatism. Broad-shouldered suits for men and cinched-waist duster dresses for women, all in an array of mausoleum greys and doleful browns. And even beneath the blinkered purview of conventional society, the Hanky Code found a formidably fabulous foothold. These weren't grand displays of defiance, however. Quite the contrary. They were little jabs under the table, subtle elbow nudges, legend written in linens of lavender, lemon, and lilac. The mellow world wasn't privy to their language. They wouldn't be able to recite the difference between a left pocket, worn kerchief, signaling one sentiment, and a right pocket, worn one indicating quite another. But, to those in the know, each creased corner and every color-coded cloth bore a unique story. Now isn't that quite the sartorial sauce to sink your sleepy synapses into? An ocean blue hanky casually peeking out of a fellow's pocket at the jukebox meant something entirely different from a moss green one. Take a hint. The blue had nothing to do with feeling sad, nor did the green suggest a sudden spike in environmental consciousness. Contrarily, let's imagine you spied a burnt orange handkerchief on the corner of a counter in a diner, staring at the hanky and itching your head, figuring out if it was left as a tip, an oversight, or a coded message from an undercover agent awaiting extraction. Oh, the clandestine drama of colors. They can paint quite a picture, can't they? But hold your horses, listener. Did you really think that colors were the code's only gimmick? Nay, far be it from the beholder of the Hanky Code to limit their linguistic love to mere pigments. For as much as thy color mattered, so did the placement too. Left pocket or right, folded diagonally or square. Each variance held a differing, discrete meaning to it. It was a flamboyant foxtrot danced in tweed and twill, a soft-spoken symphony crocheted into corners and creases. A language not just spoken, my delightful dreamer, but worn with a casual, coded style. The beauty of the Hanky Code was in its understated defiance, its delicate dance around societal norms. It was a language unspoken yet understood, inscribed onto the fabric of everyday life, and a token of resilience woven into the cinematic storyboard of the 1950s. But as much as we revel in the romantic notion of revolution told through pocket squares, we must remember that the characters playing out this part of history were not heroes in flashy capes, but ordinary people with extraordinary stories. A maraschino cherry sitting atop the monotonous monolith of the mid-century malaise. They weren't rebelling for rebellion's sake. They were simply finding their way to the jukebox, one color-splashed hanky at a time, in a world that didn't understand them. So, as the clock hand sweeps us forward towards the end of this chapter, I can't help but admire the audacious allegory of the Hanky Code. But shadowy diner corners and code-laden bandanas are not where our tale ends. Oh no. We're merely turning the corner, adjusting our metaphorical Hanky Code and moving on to the next adventure. We've just dallied around the jukeboxes and bowling alleys of the 1950s. Who knows where our history-bound hoverboard will whisk us to next? I'll give you a hint though. There's rhythmic rebellions, toe-tapping teasers, and perhaps a coat of many colors await us in the next narrative nook. So why not roll over to your comfier side, dear listener? Let the tone tune of history lull you deeper into the land of dreamy dozes. Perhaps, you never know, you might just dream in Hanky Code. Stranger things have happened after all. With that cozy dose of historical humor and warm winks, let's bid adieu to the 1950s. When we return, we'll tune our time-traveling radios to the next mysterious melody of history. Until then, sleep tight and dream of coded kerchiefs. Within the clandestine network flourishing in the 1950s, the Hanky Code was an intriguingly personal language, a semaphore signaling love and desire wrapped in everyday cloth. It's like the love child of Bletchley Park's cryptography department and a department store's discount clothing rack. The commonplace hanky became a flag of personal ads, classified by sex, activity, and state of mind. It was like a private Facebook for the privately fabulous. Take Mr. Buttercup Yellow Hanky, for instance, a quintessential character in our 1950s urban tableau, set in a smoke-filled jazz club, flickering under the multicolored glow of the neon lights. We find him stirring a martini with a tiny plastic swizzle stick. The yellow hanky, with its crisp, ironed edges and a particular desire. Yellow for our jolly, a particular desire. Yellow for our jolly, Mr. Buttercup. Yellow hanky indicated a particular liking for water sports. Now, before you imagine him in a bathing suit, cruising around on a jet ski, it's not that kind of water sport. But we will keep it PG-13 here and let your go-to search engine enlighten you further, if you're so inclined. Just make sure no small children or unsuspecting individuals are nearby when you do. The left pocket placement, oh yes, that's important too, signaled he preferred to be the instigator or active partner in this endeavor. A yellow hanky in the right pocket would mean he was seeking an enthusiastic participant to take the lead, so to speak. Then you had the wholesome Mr. White hanky. Ever so vanilla, never investing in cryptic desires, always safe. He was simply looking for a bit of old-fashioned courtship. Maybe a walk in the park, or perhaps sharing a chocolate malt at the soda shop. But there's more. A red hanky indicated someone interested in something a little more racy, while grey catered to those with a penchant for bondage, but not the financial kind, though who knows. Maybe some of them got a thrill out of discussing stocks and bonds too. Moving further down the proverbial rainbow, we find Mr. Black Hanky. Representing the bad boys of the 50s, the ones with a dark leather jacket, a brooding expression, and a love for S&M that would make even a dominatrix blush. And no, S&M doesn't stand for sandwiches and mustard. Again, that's a question for your search engine, should curiosity provoke. The system was efficient but hardly flawless. Imagine the confusion and potential embarrassment on laundry day when you happen to switch pockets. Or when an innocent man with allergies or a runny nose grabbed the nearest hanky without contemplating its telltale hue. The awkward possibilities were endless. Ah, the Hanky Code. It was like a secret game of Twister, all about dexterity, color coordination, and knowing your left from your right. A tangible echo of forbidden desires whispered into the bold canvas of everyday life. It told a powerful story, and while it certainly has some Lyle-worthy moments, it's more than just historical comedy. Next chapter, we will explore how the Hanky Code evolved with time and how it gave birth to various offshoots, merging into a modern social landscape, dotted with digital shortcuts and emoticon expressions. If you think the Hanky Code was full of colorful complexity, wait until we venture into the realm where winks and smiles carry more weight than war and peace. Picture this. It's the middle of the 20th century, an era of pin-up girls, pin-straight hairdos, and, oddly, pins with coded messages. Specifically, handkerchiefs pinched at particular places. Quite peculiar, you might think. And you'd be right, because we're diving into yet another gloriously bizarre, labyrinthine track of hidden history. This one is big on fabrics, small on candid disclosure. Welcome, my dear negligible insomniacs, to the world of the Hanky Code. Now, You're likely assuming we're about to discuss an elaborate system of waving handkerchiefs from castle towers to signal to your sweetheart or prompt your wily getaway horse into action. Firstly, stop watching so many period dramas before bedtime, you hopeless romantics. Secondly, though your imagination is respectfully flamboyant, our tale delves into a secret language woven deep within the fabric of queer culture. You see, the 1950s had a quirky way of muffling expressions of anything outside the so-called norm. Oh, and by quirky, I mean oppressively stringent and stifling. Being one's true, beautiful self was a game of shadows and veiled whispers. It was in such a climate of censorship and fear that the unassuming, but oh so fashionable, handkerchief came to be a secret identifier within the LGBTQ+ community. This clandestine code took a page right out of the fashion tabs, or maybe just the linen closet. It was pretty simple at its core. Stick a hanky in your pocket, and suddenly, you're telling a story. The color, the print pattern, even the pocket selected spoke a muted language, a Morse code of the metropolitan. And no, they weren't just picking pocket per preference of paisley to polka dots. These stylish accessories were the covert DM slides of the day, my dear sleep-defying historians. Imagine walking down a crowded 1950s street, spotted hanky peeking out from the back pocket. It wasn't just adding a striking pop of color to your otherwise monochromatic pants. It was an invitation, a handshake, or a knowing nod between shared secrets. Oh, the stories those hankies could whisper if they talked. And the hues of the handkerchiefs were no random selection of colors. No, dear. Listener, they were words woven into the colorful vocab of the handkerchief code. Red indicated a fondness for a certain rousing activity that we'll call dinner party hosting, while a black one was an open invitation to a very debatable game of chess. And in a strange combination of practicality and symbolism, a light blue hanky explicitly signified an inclination towards purchasing swimwear. You simply cannot make these things up. But why the left or right pocket? Well, according to the playful geometry of the Hanky Code, the left pocket was typically reserved for those desiring to host dinner parties, while the right indicated those eager to be guests. Wearing a light blue hanky on the left, therefore, wasn't just fashion-forward, but a statement that one was searching for a co-swimmer and willing to buy the swimwear. While we now live in a world awash with rainbow flags and glittering parades, back then, a dash of color peeking from a pocket was more than a fashion statement. It was a lifeline, a beacon, a whisper in the crowd saying, "You're not alone." As we depart our secret journey into the realm of the Hanky Code, tucking away our colored fabrics for the night, we unravel the realms of dreams where secrets are often kept and mysteries unfurl. We'll uncover more in our next chapter, where secret codes take an unexpected flight. A certain pigeon, an unsuspected serviceman, and World War I. Did you ever hear of the heroic Cher Ami? But oh dear me, the tale of Cher Ami is one for another time. All tucked up and ready? Next stop, dreams and the skies of WWE. Sleep well now, my hardy historians. We have handkerchiefs to fold and dreams to decode. In the fabric weave of our tale on the Hanky Code, impeccably threaded through the 1950s, we've discovered a patchwork of intriguing tales. One might say that we've hanky-pankied our way through some amusingly awkward historical hiccups. And now, dear slumber-bound listeners, we shall delve a bit deeper into the more colorful aspects, looking at how the code contributed to unexpected art and fashion trends. Art, you see, has often found its purpose in brightening the world, while fashion, in comparison, has frequently danced tantalizingly on the edge of the socially acceptable. It was perhaps inevitable that the two would intersect, folding the Hanky Code into a sublimely ridiculous style phenomenon. So in the mid-1950s, onwards, to a decade best known for its rebellion against conservative values, we find this intriguing intersection. With the subtlety and stealth of a cat wearing tap shoes, the Hanky Code began influencing the art and fashion scene, and the proverbial cat was doing the Charleston. Quite bizarrely, the hanky was no longer a simple tool of non-verbal communication, stashed away in back pockets of jazz joints and speakeasies. It was invited to high art soirees, often playfully draped on sculptures or coyly peeping from the canvas of a still life. Streets were suddenly awash with technicolor handkerchiefs. The art world, in its infinite wisdom, recognized the hanky for what it truly was, a symbol of clandestine expression and an emblem of rebellion. And as our favorite piece of fabric flirted with art, the attractions of the fashion world proved irresistible. Clothing designers began incorporating them into their creations. Can you imagine for a moment ladies strutting around in dresses embellished with hankies of exotic colors, each hue giving off a mixed message or two? Such was the spectrum of the 50s fashion scene. Skirts, hats, even gloves, all sprouted handkerchiefs like proud peacocks flaunting their plumage. Handkerchiefs were not only stitched to clothing, but stylishly worn as accessories. For the women, tied around their necks or cinched at their waists, the hanky was a fashion statement. Men, not to be left out, had hankies poking from their suit pockets, while the youth, in their rebellious spirit, wore bandanas fashioned, of course, from hankies. Yes, it was utter hanky pandemonium in every direction. It was around this time the famous hanky chick was coined, born of the unexpected union of the Hanky Code with high fashion. After all, who could ever resist parading the secrets of the underworld woven into the threads of a brightly colored piece of cloth? Anonymity was suddenly so very en vogue. Now, we're not suggesting that everyone strolling down Fifth Avenue wearing a hanky was part of the coded talk. That would be as ludicrous as arguing that all dogs with spots are Dalmatians. But it does kindle an amusing image, doesn't it? A world where each vibrant handkerchief narrates its own cryptic tale, ready to sink into the depths of unknowing anonymity once its purpose was served. But alas, our rambunctious episode with the hankies is nearing its end. So let's slow down, relax, and wrap ourselves in a quilt of comfort, then dream about coded handkerchiefs twirling in a kaleidoscope of color. Sweet dreams are surely made of these. Now, what happens when the secretive whispers of the Hanky Code find themselves outshone by the glistening allure of technology in the swinging 60s? Ah, dear listeners, that is a tale for another dose, where we'll discover how the hanky navigated the stormy seas of change. As we bid adieu to the 50s, we pull back the curtain and sneak a peek into the audacious auditions taking place on the stage of communicative evolution. Brightly colored hankies rustle in the wind as they make way for the twinkling stars of Morse code, rotary telephones, and budding computer languages, preparing for their shining debut in the limelight of our next slumberous story. As our epic journey through the technicolor tale of the Hanky Code rambles on, we stumble across an era bursting with plucky optimism. The year is 1953, and America is humming along to the bouncy tune of post-war prosperity. Picture the classic scene. It's all comfy sweater-wearing dads, pot roast dinners, and shiny red Chevrolets bounding down impeccably clean suburban streets. A perfect Americana tableau, if you will. But hidden amongst the white picket fence charm, a clandestine language of colorful handkerchiefs silently swirled. In the heart of this idyllic decade, the Hanky Code thrived like a covert club handshake, quietly knitting together a community reaching for a voice. But first, let's spin the yarn about how things worked. Simply put, a gentleman would stuff a hanky into his back pocket. The left pocket meant he was a debonair instigator, setting the scene, leading the dance of dalliance. In contrast, the right pocket tagged him as a receptive participant, the dance's accommodating follower, if you like. The color, oh the color, it conveyed the wearer's most deeply held notions, preferences, and sometimes choice of sandwich filling. All right, I made that last part up. Apologies. I have an incorrigible penchant for culinary history, terribly uncouth. The business of color was sinisterly serious. Red signaled an alacrity for, let's just say, robust passion. Blue declared the wearer a fan of conventional twosome dances. Black held a slightly dark outlook on life. Clear for those who managed to source invisible handkerchiefs was a harbinger of uncertainty, much like a fuzzy weather forecast. Now try to imagine the historical humor woven into this practice. Picture haughty Harvard scholars strolling around campus with blue suspenders and tweed jackets, oblivious to their back pockets, surreptitiously hosting red bandanas, spontaneous bursts of laughter echoing around a room as someone accidentally pulled a lime green hanky from their right pocket in place of their presentation notes during a serious boardroom meeting. Oh, the delightful, unknowing mishaps in this grayscale world of suits, briefcases, and starched white shirts. The Hanky Code added a delightful splash of color. It was a tantalizing rainbow swirling amidst monotonous conformity. This was a world where a mere glance at a man's behind could be the equivalent of reading a saucy novel. To those who understood its secret language, it offered a confounding degree of complexity and depth. Yet it was not all light-hearted. The Hanky Code, for all its humorous undertones, was a radical form of queer resistance, a gentle act of defiance against society's stringent scripts. It allowed gay men to find each other, safely, silently, subtly, in a world that was yet to fully embrace their identity. The Hanky Code wasn't just a pocket gag. It was a symbol of visibility, a beacon calling out in the sea of sameness, a quiet nod, an understanding wink in a world that too often averted its eyes. Amidst the backdrop of conformity, starched shirts, and pie-baking competitions, the Hanky Code emerged as a beacon of bold color. So, as we finish closing the time-worn pages of this chapter, let's appreciate this clandestine language that dared to paint the Queen's English and crumpets, as we's Queen's English and crumpets. As we unravel this British chapter of queer history, we'll see some familiar shadows dancing in the clandestine darkness, but draped in a different moniker. As you may have guessed, even when sleeping, history packs in a few amusing surprises. Let's see what the Polari codes have in store for us. It sure promises to be one colorful outing. Hush, the British are coming. I mean, we're going to Britain in the next chapter. How thrilling, eh? But let's not rush away just yet. I hope our 1950s Americana dream allows you a peaceful and colorful slumber. Good night, dear listener. Once upon half past a teacup, dear sleep-seeking listener, I want you to picture a scene of shimmering innocence. The 1950s are in full swing, and the ladies are swooning over the buttery goodness of Elvis Presley's hip-shaking rock and roll anthems. Ah yes, the 1950s, when the Cold War was hot, big band jazz was cool, and fanny packs were still an unfortunate future fashion faux pas. But among the atomic age angst and pastel-colored petticoats, a different kind of communication was tiptoeing into the corridors of clandestine culture. That's right, my drowsy devotees, we're talking about the fancy schmancy Hanky Code. Now, you might be thinking, hold up, handkerchiefs? In the 1950s, weren't they just used for dainty damsel-distressed nose-blowing activities or dramatically dropped to initiate roadside duels? What exactly could be so cryptically communicative about a piece of fabric? Well, brace yourself, my dainty dreamer, for this soft, sartorial secret is about to cause quite the kerfuffle in your preconceptions. In some circles and corners, the humble hanky wasn't just a piece of cotton, silk, or, heaven forbid, polyester to go with one's outfit. Oh, me number! It was a coded message, a serenade of subtle signals that could speak volumes about its carrier's personal leanings. With the subtlety of a cat burglar wearing ballet slippers, people of certain persuasions, let's call them the handkerchief-handed heroes, wore their hankies in various patterns, colors, and pocket placements to slyly indicate their preferences. A red hanky, for example, in the left pocket, announced one was light-hearted and light-headed lover of life. Meanwhile, wearing the same color in the right pocket declared to the world, or at least anyone clued in on the code, that you preferred reading heavy philosophy and studious solitude. And in the belt loop, aspiring astronaut, missing the moon. So how did one decipher this cryptic kerchief code without a secret spy decoder ring? Well, that's where circles of trust, fates of friendship, and clandestine chortles over cosmic canapes came into play. After all, if you decode a secret and don't have anyone to share it with, then is it truly a secret? Can a tree falling in a forest be fabricated from fabric? Cracking the code wasn't just a casual Friday fodder. It was a nifty little way of navigating the social scene and sliding into sonnets of shared symbolism. This meticulous manipulation of pocket squares allowed a certain savvy crowd to silently, subtly, and style-iconically stand out to one another while simply blending into background for those not blessed with the secret knowledge. This kerchief communication continued quite contentedly, its whispers rustling in the rose-tinted underbelly of the fad-friendly 50s. However, like all juicy gossip, the whispers grew louder, the Hanky Code affecting wider circles, and ruffling up more than a few tailored trouser creases along the way. But dear listener, let's put a slightly worn bookmark in that bit of historical hilarity and save that for our next chapter. As we dim the light on this chapter, let us ponder in our dreamy, twilight stupor how the humble handkerchief, in its cotton musk anonymity, became not just a checkered or paisley foghorn for hidden hearts, but an emblem of understanding, camaraderie, and secret society solidarity. As we let this tapestry of history envelop us, let's give a courteous nod to the hanky-handed heroes who, in a time of buttoned-up attitudes, found a clever, colorful, and coded way to express themselves. And as we fold up this chapter, dear listener, let your eyelids acclaim a rendezvous with your pillows and allow your thoughts to drift slowly to the rhythm of your sleepy sighs. For we have much to uncover yet. Just when you thought all the cards were shown, history, like an omnipresent magician, always pulls out another rabbit, or in this case, another handkerchief out of its seemingly bottomless hat. But for that, we shall have to untuck the pages of another sleep-soaked saga. For now, dream on, dear listener, dream on a world where your pocket square could be a arts poem, a proclamation, a punchline to a private joke, and a passport to a secret society. Good night. In the soft glow of the neon evening in 1950s America, as Elvis Presley's crooner tones danced lightly in the background, something wonderfully subversive was unfolding. We delve into the secret society of the Hanky Code, a nonverbal communication protocol so understated, many reputed historians, despite their tweed-jacketed stoicism, must have found it rather titillating. Picture the scene, good gentle listener. Men strolling down streets, clad in the fashions of the time, sports coats, fedora hats, well-pressed trousers, seemingly nondescript. But pay attention to the subtle hint of a handkerchief peeking out from their pockets, a blink-and-you-miss-it flash of color. To the untrained eye, it is merely a handkerchief. But to those in the know, why, it's a veritable billboard of intentions, a semaphore of sauciness, a Victoria's Secret catalogue in cotton form, if you'd like. Let's stroll down this quaint historical alley. The Hanky Code apparently had its origins in the San Francisco gold rush of the late 1800s. Men far outnumbered women, and, given societal norms of the time, the Macarena of heterosexual partnering left many a miner without a partner. Men began to dance with each other, using a kerchief to indicate who would lead and who would follow. Fast forward to the roaring 50s, and the Hanky Code transformed into something more, a color-coded declaration of preferences to other men, in an era where such declarations could be very, very risky. The droll humor of it all. Look at the creativity the human spirit shows when forces of repression are at play. Each color became a code. A red, for instance, euphemistically expressed an interest in fisticuffs. But let's remember, this isn't a bare-knuckle boxing class we're discussing. Lavender suggested an interest in drag queens, and charcoal offered an enamorment for latex. By the way, there were no traffic police for hanky colors, so no fines or citations issued for wrong shades. An unintended pun? Of course not. This is history humor, dear listener. And then, it gets juicier. Left pocket, right pocket, These things mattered in the grand scheme of Hanky Code traditions. The left pocket hinted the person was active, while the right pocket, whisper, suggested they were passive. So, imagine walking through a crowded party, eyeing up the tantalizing tantalum hanky, peeping out of someone's left pocket while trying not to spill your dry martini. A quite stimulating game of covert eye operations indeed. History has all these hidden pockets of mirth and myth. Sure enough, the Hanky Code is often looked upon skeptically by some historians, with claims that the code was short-lived and limited to just a minuscule section of society. Be that as it may, dear sleep seekers, let's not let practical skepticism rob us of the delight in imagining a clandestine world of kaleidoscopic kerchiefs winking sotto voce, signals into the 1950s night. We shall continue our historical journey into times where the absurd met the risque in the gentle caverns of the past. As we pull on our metaphorical time traveler's fedora, remember to check your pockets for handkerchiefs. Choose your colors wisely. Do we venture next into the swinging 60s, or will some other curious cupboard beckon? While the chapter of the Hanky Code has drawn to a close, another awaits us, promising unseen anecdotes that blend the unexpected with the uncanny. But let's leave that for another night, another chapter, another secret swell of shared dreams and scattered history, where sleep and sermon waltz together in a pattern as intricate and perhaps as whimsical as the Hanky Code itself. As our journey through the intriguingly clandestine world of the 1950s Hanky Code presses on, we come across one of history's most audacious fashion faux pas and a uniquely coded conversation all at once. Carelessly, or perhaps deliberately, tucked away in the back pocket of seemingly ordinary pants, there was so much more than just a piece of fabric waiting to wipe a sweaty brow or perhaps an occasional tear. The beauty of the Hanky Code, dear listener, can be found not only in its covert elegance, but also, somewhat ironically, in its bold, blaring visibility. It was simultaneously a cry hidden in plain sight and a wink shared among knowing insiders. Let's deary dive into analyzing the colors of this rainbow pocket language. In the fabulous 50s, the royalty of colors, purple, had its unique, theatrical significance. A purple hanky in the left pocket indicated that the wearer was a drag queen. The right pocket, a lover of those colorful, glamorous performers. Now, you may have started to see the pattern, and I'm delighted to confirm this for the clarity seekers amongst you. Right means likes. Left means I am. But now brace your sleepy heads for a vivid plot. Twist. The color purple held a second, high-stakes meaning. A darker purple hanky symbolized a piercing enthusiast in the roughest sense of the word. Surely, you wouldn't want to mistake these two. A casual admirer of drag queen aesthetics might find this prickly scenario quite shocking indeed. And then we come to teddy bear brown, a color of earth, of comfort. But in this clandestine code, hidden desires of bondage were suggested by the ones indulging in the undeniable charm of cocoa-colored accessories. Let's not forget about off-gray that hinted at the kinky love for rubber materials, where the adventurous left pocket wearers found the rubber-loving right pocket counterparts for exciting nights filled with squeaky sounds. And then there was the diverse world of checked patterns. Yes, you heard me right. The Hanky Code wasn't all plain sailing, or should we say plain handkerchiefing. A checked hanky in the right pocket would speak volumes about the wearer's affection for older men, while the same pattern on the left hinted at their claim to the silver fox identity. But surely, the most mystifying of all was the elusive "do not disturb" signaling of no color at all. The empty pocket, the deliberate absence of the hanky, declared an explicit wish to be left alone. But as history does have its cheeky side, a monochromatic bandana expressed the same with a tad more style, or perhaps a dash of playful indifference. Ah, the delicious paradox of signaling a "do not disturb" while engaging with the language of disturbance at the same time. And here we are, calmly navigating through a whirlwind of hidden desires spoken through the language of colorful hankies. More than once, the Hanky Code has likely saved an adventurous night owl from the potential treachery of mistaken identities. But the code, dear listener, was not just a cautionary tale of navigating clandestine relationships. It was a defiant confession, a bold placard carried on the precipice of visibility and anonymity. The Hanky Code was the voice of the voiceless, a quiet riot taking place in the back pockets of the daring, of those who are willing to paint their desires in bold, vibrant colors. In the next chapter, we will embark onto the embryonic stages of the rainbow movement, a crucial correlation between our love-ridden handkerchiefs and the flag that came to represent love in all its magnificent colors and forms. So, snuggle in your beds, dear listeners, as we get ready to raise the flag and march forward, coloring our dreams with the vivid hues of a world that dared to love out loud. In the luminous fabric of the 1950s, a particular pattern was being stitched into place. Now, imagine, if you will, that your favorite pair of blue jeans could whisper secrets, or that your comfy old hat held a coded message revealing pieces of your heart's clandestine desires. Well, that, my friends, is the essence of the Hanky Code. The Hanky Code, also known as the Handkerchief Code, was a form of communication developed in the mid-20th century United States. Now, this wasn't your run-of-the-mill tie a yellow ribbon around an old oak tree kind of messaging. It was a covert, color-coded system offering an ingenious and fashionable way for those within the LGBTQ+ community to signal and recognize each other. In a time when open, outward dialogue about sexual identities and preferences was frowned upon, these seemingly innocent pieces of fabric became emblems of audacity, unity, and rebellion. Picture the scene. You stroll around the downtown streets, weaving through the bustling crowd. As you tip up your hat, your eyes meet with someone who has a deep red handkerchief hanging from their back pocket. They smile, offering a subtle nod. In the language of hankies, red stood for an interest in a certain variety of, shall we say, slightly frisky activities. It's all rather intriguing, isn't it? The system was not merely limited to primary colors. The rainbow of hankies encompassed a delightful assortment of shades, each with its unique significance. Black, into leather, teal, a fan of swimming, lavender, a cross-dresser. The list goes on, a confounding and beguiling blizzard of tones and tints, all quietly whispering their distinct messages. And oh goody, there's more to the code. The placement of the hanky also played a vital role. Did you favor your left pocket? Perhaps then, you preferred to be the one wearing the boots in the relationship. But if you sported your little square in the right pocket, you might have been partial to cough air being carried upon said boots. Now, let's clear the air here. The Hanky Code wasn't a secretive scheme concocted by devious minds, nor was it an elaborate hoax for gentle jesting. It was a signal flare, a ray of light piercing the haze of societal norms. It was a way for a community, cast into the shadows, to carve out space for themselves and connect with each other. Hot pink from your coral pink, your hot pink from your coral pink, your robin's egg from your navy blue. It was rather like learning a whole new language, one purely visual, hidden in plain sight among the general public like an audacious piece of guerrilla art. What an elaborate game of show and tell it must have been, full of secret winks, knowing smiles, and meticulously chosen bits of cloth. Added bonus, all this undercover communication simply meant, quite practically, that you always, without fail, had something to wipe your nose with. Now, brushing the comedic crumbs from our historical dinner plate, it's important to note that the Hanky Code was also essential. It was a lifeline for many, a secret handshake, a clandestine heartbeat throbbing in the crowded city streets. And it underlines the beautiful yet heartbreaking lengths individuals and communities go through to communicate and truly be seen in a world that frequently tries to look away. Personally, I've learned to view the contents of people's pockets with a whole new level of curiosity. One could discover all kinds of fascinating tidbits from a polka-dotted pocket square or a silk-ribboned handkerchief. But that, dear listeners, is a tale for another hour. And now, my friends, as we draw the threads of this chapter together, the tapestry of history unfolds further, hinting at stories yet to be shared and inviting us to dig deeper into the charmingly colourful Hanky Code. Ah, dear listeners, the hidden stories tucked in our back pockets. Who could have thought? I'll see you on the other side of the wink as we waltz leisurely through this historical tapestry, an intriguing blend of colour and contrast. The fabric of the 1950s Hanky Code springs to the fore. Once a hidden language among subcultures, the Hanky Code became a symbolic and splendidly sassy form of nonverbal communication. Picture this, would you? It's a balmy night in San Francisco, sometime during the 1950s. You're strolling through a dimly lit and curiously fragrant alleyway, jazzed up with neon signs. You stride past sailors on shore leave and sharply dressed jazz enthusiasts, jostling for space near a popular radio dealer's window, intent on catching the latest Ella Fitzgerald hit. Now, your eyes are drawn to something peculiar. Hanging from the back pockets of a group of seemingly average gents, you spot an array of colourful handkerchiefs fluttering quite flirtatiously in the sultry breeze. It's like a kaleidoscope of coloured fabric, each hanky a fluttering banner alluding to a secret, individual message. Of course, the innocent first thought might be that they've all got a peculiarly coordinated case of the sniffles. But let's remember, dear listeners, in the world of history, things simply aren't as simple as they seem. The truth is far more intriguing, entertaining, and as warm and fuzzy as a pair of flannel footsie pajamas. Those handkerchiefs were more than just snot catchers and pocket fillers. They were pivotal communication tools in a much grander scheme. A showy red hanky in the right pocket suggested a particular inclination, while a subdued beige hanky in the left pocket signaled something entirely different. And lo, the Hanky Code was born, offering a remarkably vibrant and ingenious solution to a complex societal challenge. The big wins here, aside from being incredibly inventive, it was wonderfully inclusive. Every hanky colour and placement was well thought out, with an expansive repertoire of hankies, signalling everything from personal preferences to delightful dinner date invitations. Admittedly, the most popular hanky colours, blue, red and black, got taken for the more conventional likes and dislikes, leaving the more, shall we say, inventive folks to pick from what remained. Think olive green, coral pink, lemon yellow, or even an inimitably pert lavender. If you wore a lavender hanky just so, you were telling the world that, against all odds, you were, yes, a rodeo cowboy. Of course, there were the inevitable hanky mix-ups. For instance, say hypothetically, you're a chap oblivious to the Hanky Code. You stuff your pockets with a pair of fiery red hankies, one for each nostril naturally, only to attract a volley of winks and saucy smiles at the local dance joint. Or you'd wear a teal hanky and wonder why people kept asking you about your foot fetish. And thus the dance of the hankies continued throughout the decade, forming an intricate, if rather unconventional part of 1950s culture. A beautiful testament to the resourcefulness of humans in their quest for connection, the Hanky Code wove its vibrant threads into the backdrop of a complex era. But before you enter your own quiet dreamscape, stuffing your head full of pigmented cloth signals, don't get too flustered, dear listener. After all, it's unlikely that you'll need to distinguish between mauve and lilac hankies at the grocery store tomorrow, unless, of course, you're planning to resurrect the Hanky Code. If so, more power to you, and make sure to adequately represent the rodeo cowboys. As we move gently forward, the Hanky Code's vibrant spectrum starts to fade, giving way to a new episode from yesteryear's drawer. The 1950s cocktail parties are waiting at the doorstep, luring us in with a gentle clinking of martini glasses and whispers of well-dressed secrets. But that, my dear listeners, is a tale etched in the bubbles of champagne and poured generously to fill the glass of our next chapter. Rest easy, knowing we'll uncover those secrets together. But for now, slip softly into your dreams. Let them be filled with colourful handkerchiefs. Now, just imagine If you will, it's sunny afternoon in 1950s San Francisco, and the birds are contributing to the soothing hum of city life. With a delightful little bop in their step, a dandy-ish individual wearing a gingham plaid red hanky in the left pocket of their finely tapered jeans saunters down the street, grinning from ear to ear. Trust me when I say it's no ordinary hanky. No, dear listener, this hanky is part of the Hanky Code, an underground system of sartorial signals widely utilized by the LGBTQ+ community in the 1950s. Our cheeky friend's hanky managed to play translator. It spoke the unspoken, offered a nod and a wink to the in the know, and kept things on the down low for those not yet prepared to sport their own vibrant kerchief. But I wager your eyes are getting heavy and your mind curious about the journey our red, hanky-toting friend is embarking on. Kindly permit me to escort you through the lanes of hidden history filled with whimsical crypticism and twirling, you guessed it, hankies. Now, take a moment to consider that the 1950s were, well, a different kettle of fish. Communications had to be subtle, downtoned, a jigsaw puzzle of discernible meaning. The LGBTQ+ community back then did something we all do when we're faced with restrictions. They used their creative ingenuity and spawned the Hanky Code. Just picture it as a kaleidoscope of colorful handkerchiefs that fostered unspoken communication and connection between like-minded souls. Every flash of color, whether somber black or lively lavender, had a unique language to convey. Let me take you through some of the acclaimed colors, each with their own fabulous narratives. There was our red hanky wearer we started our tale with, indicating a certain preference for, let's just say, certain bold, adventurous bedroom activities. Blue, which when worn on the left meant the individual preferred to take the lead and guide the dance, while the right indicated a yen to follow the rhythms set by another. And there was the playful green, often symbolizing a penchant for the commencement of a monetary exchange of affection. A taste of entrepreneurial spirit, wouldn't you say? Our friend's choice of red hanky, flapping gently in the warm San Francisco breeze, communicated to the world, or rather to those fluent in the coded color language, his personal preferences without uttering a single syllable. Peer to peer, cheek to cheek, they danced together in this language of love, embraced by this colorful tribe of vibrant hankies. Ah, yes, these secret codes might seem peculiar to us, people of the 21st century, where many are free to express their love openly. But dear listener, know that the Hanky Code wasn't just about displaying preferences and getting lucky on a lovely afternoon. It was a tricky kind of knitting together, turning a lamentable void into a tapestry of togetherness. It was a beacon of identity, a quiet, rebellious act in the face of societal norms, stitching together a patchwork quilt of community and shared understanding. Now that your eyelids are dancing with images of colorful kerchiefs swirling down those nostalgic, sun-kissed San Francisco lanes, let me just tantalize your curiosity with a tease of our next chapter. As our protagonist walks down the street, his red hanky whistling in the wind, he is about to encounter a man with a well-ironed mint green kerchief. What tales will their hankies tell when they finally cross paths? My friend, snuggle up a bit deeper into your warm, comfy covers as we prepare to delve into the intriguing dance of the mint green handkerchief of the 1950s next time. Sweet dreams and rest well until we meet again in these cozy realms of boring history secrets. In our nondescript journey through the labyrinth of historical eccentricities, we now saunter into the 1950s inventive queer jargon. Before the advent of emojis, social media, and cryptic text slangs, there was another code that frolicked the fashion and gay scenes, the Hanky Code. Buckle up, dear insomniacs, because we're about to delve into a swatch of history woven with colorful kerchiefs and clandestine signals. The Hanky Code, or as it was raffishly called, the Bandana Code, was a covert way for the gay community to communicate. Picture this, it's the mid-20th century. Elvis Presley is making people swoon. Disneyland is just opening its gates, and in the depths of society's pockets, a quiet revolution is being color-coded. With various colors signifying different interests and inclinations, the Hanky Code was a wearable lexicon for a community longing to articulate without words. The code was simple. Wear a hanky of a specific color in your right pocket if you desired something, left pocket if you offered it. This secret semaphore stretched from coast to coast, bandana to bandana, like a multi-hued tapestry of desire and self-identity. Ah, the colors. The sheer array of hues could have left even a seasoned Dulux color chart feeling inadequate, from light blue for a certain proclivity that will keep PG, deep red for an inclination towards a bit of fisticuffs, in a playful context, of course, to burgundy for an interest in enophilia. That's wine lovers for the uninitiated, and surprisingly, it wasn't an invite for a Merlot-infused rendezvous. What's even more intriguing is the existence of a checkerboard hanky, fascinatingly known to stand for, brace for it, a love of chess. Could it get any more eccentric? Or should I say, checkmate? Imagine, in a crowded bar, a gentleman subtly pulling out a tangerine bandana to wipe his brow, only to get invited for an elaborate feast. Because that's what the tangerine hue represented, an appetite for food and a yearning for companionship. Best reservation in town, wouldn't you agree? It's no hyperbole to say that these fabric cryptograms were the gay community's Rosetta Stone during conservative times. While the franca had a delectable blend of risk and ruse, the murmured innuendos born out of these signals lent a beautiful undercurrent of camaraderie and resilience. The 1950s might seem like a black and white snapshot in our colorful timeline, but incidentally, the one color not used in this rainbow of signification was black. Why, you ask? Historians shrug. Maybe, just like how one always saves room for desserts, they were saving black for something exotic, or simply saving it from the cliched association with something dark or forbidden. As we delve deeper into this technicolor revolution of hankies, porter patterns and pocket placements, it's important to note that history, much like a snoozing cat in your lap, often makes you feel comforted and intrigued at the same time. And while you ponder what the color of your PJs might signal in the Hanky Code, let's segue into a quieter world where somber hues of grey held an entirely different significance. Next stop, dear friends, bring your magnifying glasses and caffeine. As the tea gets murkier and the secrecy more cryptic, we'd be diving into the mysterious grey world of spies and code breakers of the 50s. Ah well, you'd be comfortably yawning by then. Just don't forget to check your pockets. Ambling down the boulevard of our historical tapestry, we find ourselves swathed snugly in the decade of sock hops and soda fountains, the bustling 1950s. It was during this rather coy little epoch that an unusual social practice emerged from the vivacious shadows of marginalized communities. Today, my dear snooze seekers, we shall be focusing our night spectrum lanterns on the enigmatic and slightly hilarious Hanky Code. As we meander through the cobblestone streets of yore, you might feel a faint puff of humor tickling your whiskers. The Hanky Code, or flagging, as it was often referred to, was a sardonic and ingenious method of clandestine communication, punningly embraced by the LGBTQ community. Imagine a world where color-coded handkerchiefs whispered their secret messages from the back buttons or pockets of their wearers, each vibrant shade outlining the wearer's interests, or, shall we say, nocturnal preferences. Did you sweep your gaze past a fellow with a navy blue handkerchief peeping from his right pocket? Ah, interesting telltale. In the brevity of a sidelong glance, you would garner a wealth of information. You see, dear listeners, navy blue in the right pocket was the hanky-panky equivalent of saying, I don't mind a good old rough-and-tumble wrestling match. An identical handkerchief in the left pocket, however, relayed, give me an arena, a lion, and an unwilling subject, because I fancy myself a bit of a gladiator. You'd perhaps be amused to know that this coded language incorporated a spectrum of shades that would put a box of Crayolas to utter shame and embarrassment. From the perhaps predictable red denoting fetishism to the less intuitively decipherable khaki implying a fondness for uniforms, flagging was colorfully exhaustive and stubbornly precise. Perhaps my favorite slice of this rainbow ear is the notion that within this mostly underground system were a series of hues so esoteric only a handful of users knew their meaning. A sort of VIP cocktail lounge of hanky-swapping code talkers. Here, we find colors such as light peach and mint green. The precise meaning of these handkerchiefs remains a topic of heated debate among the flagging elite, an endless subject of whispered pillow talk among history nerds worldwide. Picture the scene, if you will. Midnight at a clandestine 1950s soiree, ivories being tickled in the corner, bourbon swirling, the air dense with rogue laughter and murmurings of secrets. Suddenly, a gasp. Someone pulls out a paisley handkerchief. A fluttery breeze of confusion sweeps the room. Whispers of, "Good heavens, what does that one mean again?" ripple through the crowd. And our paisley flaunter? They simply smirk from their position, basking in the agitated aura of the puzzlement surrounding the paisley paradox. The quirkiness and humor of the Hanky Code history, though not generally known, brought about a dash of color to an otherwise monochrome era. The 1950s were a time when the dreams of freedom were kept tightly hidden behind white picket fences. Yet the clever use of a simple, subtle hanky allowed people to stake claim to a piece of this freedom. It's the kind of thing that makes history so beguiling, isn't it? The tiny details that surge and bubble away underneath the surface, quietly shaping the course of our shared narrative in ineffable ways. But as we exit this dance of dual-meaning dainties, let's leave you with a gentle nudge towards the ghostly spectre of the never-to-be-unfurled grey handkerchief. Oh, what schadenfreude-laden secrets could it withhold? But perhaps those are tales better left for another time. As the sky slowly dims and a tapestry of twinkling stars unfurls above us, we notice a faint, ethereal glow rising from the east. What could it be, you ponder? Ah, it's chapter 21, creeping over the horizon replete with tales of another forgotten historical oddity. Yes, dear listeners, we are about to embark on an inspiring journey through the winding mazes of eccentric medieval fashion. But for now, rest your weary eyes and let the mysterious hanky tales of the 1950s lull you into the calm embrace of slumber. For much of the 1950s, the Hanky Code was an open secret hidden in plain sight, a silent language of longing woven into the colorful, cottony folds of pocket handkerchiefs. But as our beloved Eva Plumeau's history proves, these played a much more critical role than merely being there for a dramatic noseblow. From the era of bandstand jitterbugs and pearl-clad housewives, imagine a flamboyant world of bold, confident people signaling their unspoken desires with left pocket red or right pocket green and everything in between. Hankies in pockets were not merely fashion decisions, but silent broadcasts of personal predilections, fluttering their semaphore messages from the rear pockets of worn-out Levi's. A blue hanky on the right, you say? Well, that's a nautical chap right there, keen on salty seafaring and the occasional sea shanty. Laugh if you will, dear listener, but these simple squares of cloth were the encrypted emails, the secret handshakes, the sly winks of their day. If you saw someone with a hanky displayed on the right, it might mean they were more likely to follow than to lead on the dance floor, as it were. The colors, they were a veritable Pantone chart of desires and fetishes. Understanding the language of these bright fabric flags was as necessary as knowing precisely how much Brill cream to use on your slicked-back hairstyle. Hint, a dabble do ya? Each hue held its own specific meaning within this kaleidoscope of communication. Like a petticoat semaphore, it was discreet yet daring, daring yet demure. In a time when self-expression was often clandestine, the Hanky Code was a vibrant exception. A red bandana, for example, didn't just mean you had a cold. It heralded flair for a certain type of play that was certainly not the childhood kind involving swings and tetherballs, Plaid hankies? Woe unto you if you thought they just displayed an admiration for Scottish Highland dancers. They told a tale of elusiveness, of perhaps not being ready yet to put all your hankies in one drawer, so to speak. And black. The black hanky, the stealthy symbol in this colourful catalogue. It played the role of the mystery novel you're afraid to start, an adventure into S&M jungle where the lions weren't the ferocious ones. All the while, the wider world remained oblivious, or just turned a blind eye, preferring to dwell on poodle skirts and sock hops. Like Fitzgerald's Lost Generation, those who lived within the Hanky Code were an enclave within an enclave, communicating with a language that was their own, a language set in paisley patterns and bold shades of eye-catching colours. However, remember, dear listener, this era was not as celebratory of personal freedom as the present day can be. Society was a stickler for conformity and policed non-normative behaviour, even if it involved something as ostensibly innocent as a hanky. These bandana broadcasts were careful, coded, and contained within communities that understood the importance of subtle communication, a language visible only to those who possessed the cipher. So, as you drift deeper into the arms of Morpheus, ponder on this quaint piece of semiotic history, the Hanky Code, a testament to the human spirit, constantly finding ways to express itself amidst constraint and censorship. It wasn't all soda fountains and sock hops in the 50s. And you know what? That's okay. The contradictions, the paradoxes, make history a wild, try-on-every-hat adventure. And speaking of hats, a seamless segue, if I do say so myself, prepare to dream tonight of the wide-brimmed and rakish, the snug ski caps and cozy cloches. Because, dear listener, the tale that awaits you as the moon crests the midnight sky will be a millinery masterpiece. How exactly does a headgear tie into this vibrant tapestry of retro secrecy? Well, stay tucked in and keep your nightcap on, dear listener. As dawn tiptoes ever so softly towards us, we will whisper on the historical saga of iconic hats and the secrets they've harbored. Let your dreams be a dress rehearsal for our upcoming hushed tête-à-tête. And remember, the hat trick, my dear insomniac, is sleep, sweet, sweet sleep. Once upon an unusual time in a decade when flashy tail-finned Cadillacs and bobby socks were the rage, some gents developed a seemingly bizarre yet profoundly coded form of communication. Hiding in plain sight and subtly shaken but never stirred, it came to be known as the infamous Hanky Code of the 1950s. Just sit tight, my somnolent friend, and let's delve into this whimsical chapter of human history. Imagine, if you will, slipping into a cityscape speckled with necktied, hat-tipping gentlemen. Now, gentleman in the 1950s wasn't merely defined by one's choice of neckwear and hat-tipping strategy. Oh, no. A slight variation could change the course of your evening, indeed even the course of your personal liaisons. Please, dear listener, don't be misled by the word hanky. We're not discussing matters of teary farewells at the train station or dashing heroes rescuing fast-fading ladies with a silken handkerchief. No, the Hanky Code was a color-coordinated beacon system, a clandestine Morse code of libidinal intentions sewed perfectly within the threads of everyday fashion. You see, the rainbow hadn't yet become a symbol for LGBTQ+ rights, too busy making unicorns look good in children's books. So these gents needed a way to signal their romantic, and let's be honest, somewhat provocative intentions without ever uttering a word. Enter, stage left, the humble handkerchief. Each color represented a different wish, if you will, from the wearer. A black handkerchief indicated an interest in a sturdy pair of handcuffs and safe words. Red stood for something like a passionate tango, but with fewer clothes and more enthusiasm. Quite exciting, isn't it? Imagine the stress of job fairs, but with kerchiefs. One had to be mindful of how they accessorized, for a misplaced shiny periwinkle pocket square could mean a world of misunderstanding. Throw in the mix the convention of left pocket for active interest, right pocket for passive inclination, and you've got yourself not a simple social gathering, but instead a 1950s version of an interactive, raunchy dating sim game, albeit a more stylish one. And what about those who were colorblind? Well, let's just say there were some very awkward yet hilarious mix-ups in dimly lit saloons. Entire dissertation-level studies could be conducted on the socio-political implications of the Hanky Code. But then again, we're here for the chuckles and the Z's, aren't we? Picture Fred, a strapping accountant by day, who, in his excitement for his first hanky soiree, fastened a purple hanky to his left pocket while wearing a green tie. In a comedy of errors worthy of a Shakespearean farce, Fred received multiple offers for a friendly game of chess, possibly involving strobe lights, when all he wanted was to simply discuss Gershwin's musical legacy. And thus, in this time of skinny ties, poodle skirts, and Martin Luther King, we had these secret handkerchief rendezvous, profound, colorful, and sometimes wildly misinterpreted. It was a covert dance, a ballet of gestures, the language of understood glances, adding a splash of color to the otherwise monochrome squareness of the 1950s. Now, your eyelids may be dropping lower as we traverse this peculiar landscape of bold color, signaling and confusing can-can. And you may be wondering, what of those whose handkerchiefs remained folded neatly in their suitcases? Ah, my drowsy friend. These individuals are our leads in our next chapter. So, drift along the edges of slumber as we prepare to embark on a whimsical journey into the world of silent rebels and clandestine codes. Ahead lies a path that chronicles their quiet defiance against conformity, their silent whispers of change that slowly, but successfully, became a thunderous chorus for equality. But remember, it's all intricately knotted in the twisted but lovable threads of our boring history, only to unravel as we journey further into slumber and amusement. Good night, my nocturnal knowledge seeker, until our tales intertwine once again in the dusty folds of the next chapter. Now, let's lend an ear to the whispered tales of the past and stroll down a curious lane carrying tales of the elaborate Hanky Code of the 1950s. The clock ticked. History was slowly being woven, and somewhere amidst all the vastness, a queer subculture was establishing its own unique, and we must add quite cheeky, system of communication. Yes, dear listeners, fasten your seatbelts and set your time machines for the fabulous 50s, because things are about to get colorfully complicated. The 1950s were not exactly famous for diversity and acceptance in fashion. Men wore suits and ties, women wore pretty dresses, and every child's must-have a fascinating assortment of patterned handkerchiefs. But in a world dominated by conformity, some of our daringly different fellows thought, why not add a splash of color to this monochrome world? And so, the Hanky Code was born. The Hanky Code, also known as the bandana code or flagging, was a playful little gizmo. Imagine communication disguised as fashion, where a simple accessory, as innocent as a handkerchief, became a language unto itself. Worn in the left pocket, right pocket, around the neck, or on the wrist, every color and placement held its own flirtatious secret. For instance, our friends might decide to wear a red hanky in the left back pocket. Cordial invitation for a dance, shall we say? A black one? Well, let's put it this way. They were looking for someone to tango with, but the steps were a bit more complex. There are intricate stories spun around each color, each placement, each fold. Oh, what fun our folks must have had while creating this colorful matrix. It was like creating a secret Morse code, bits and pieces of their identities, flashing coyly from their pockets. One would think they lived in a world of timeless rainbows, disguising their hopes and dreams within folds of simple cloths. You might wonder, why handkerchiefs? Why not hats or scarves or something more conspicuous? But think about it. The clandestine thrill of hiding something in plain sight is so delicious and satisfyingly coy that it multiplies the joy of the game. Handkerchiefs were perfect for this purpose. Being a common accessory, they attracted little attention, and they were great sneeze defenders. Truly a win-win, no doubt there. Were some hurdles. Like that time Harry mistook George's burgundy hanky for a red one. Well, that led to some cheek blushing and lots of laughter later. Or that day when Steve, clean out of options, tried flagging with a paisley hanky. Let's just say, he was a trendsetter in his own right, although the others took a while to decipher his avant-garde statement. Now, interesting as it sounds, keep in mind that all of this had profound implications. At a time when the mainstream society remained predictably tight-lipped about diverse lifestyles, the Hanky Code provided a much-needed voice for those on the margins. Through that modest little piece of cloth, people were given the liberty to express themselves openly, yet subtly. As we lay wrapped in our cozy blankets, sipping at the last strains of our bedtime teas, let's take a moment to celebrate our cheeky, daring innovators from the 1950s. To them, we owe the exciting stories of the Hanky Code. And yet, while the intrigue of the Ish-Isid's Hanky Code lies in its color-coded complexity and intricate placements, we must remember there was a time when the stakes were much higher than fluttering hearts and flushed cheeks. A time, dear listeners, when all it took was the smallest slip, the tiniest hint of the wrong color for disaster to strike. But that, dear friends, is a tale for another chapter, our final chapter, dawning on the horizon, where we will delve into a world cloaked in lavender. Until then, sleep tight and dream in abundance of colorful handkerchiefs. And so, with the softest rustle of silk and satin, we tumble, my dear insomniacs, into the final folds of our intimate exploration into the Hanky Code of the 1950s. Quite the technicolor journey, hasn't it been? A maze of intriguing hues and unexpected cues woven into the fabric of a society dancing gingerly around the rules of conformity. As today's shadows lengthen, let's venture into the verdant realm of the green handkerchief, an unassuming, but rather mirthful player in the Hanky Code. It would be remiss, wouldn't it, to tiptoe through the historic annotations of the Hanky Code and ignore our emerald-colored friend. Quite so. Mustered up your giggles, have you? Splendid. Hold on to them, for the green handkerchief, dear friends, signified an interest in horticulture, or at least horticulture of a slightly risque nature. Yes, indeed, the green handkerchief wasn't an invitation to an ordinary garden party. Oh no, this little piece of rectangular artistry was a signal for discreet dabblers in marijuana, a coded nod to all those daring to twirl a leafy waltz under the watchful eye of law enforcement. Alas, the leap from gardening hints to a herbaceous jamboree might seem a long one. Still, our affable green flag-bearer allowed our erstwhile nonconformists a quiet tryst with Mary Jane away from vigorous whispers of tisk-tsking public morality. Now, whilst you chuckle to yourself at the cleverness of these past fashionistas, it's important to remember how rife the 1950s were with moral and social restrictions. The Hanky Code, for all its humor and spark, was an adroit embodiment of that unquenched thirst for freedom, a silent symphony of desire indistinguishable to the untrained eye, but deafening to those in the know. It was a private language, a secret handshake, pulling together a marginalized community with threads of humble yet resolute rebellion. But alas, our quiet comedy of silent protest and shadowy camaraderie circles to its breezy end. We've traced and applauded the choreography of these small swatches of fabric as they sashayed and bowed across the stage of societal norms, quietly transforming from meek accessories to banners of quiet rebellion. Ah, dear listeners, we laugh because it's funny, and we laugh because it's true. And we laugh because those who dared to live authentically, despite the odds stacked against them, deserves not just our respect but also our delight. And so as we lay down the vibrant tapestry of our hanky history, gently tucking in the corners of our exploration as we tuck ourselves in for the night. Let's pause and consider the joyous absurdity of it all. How a humble hanky, tucked in a left pocket or a right, in varying shades and patterns, facilitated connections and camouflaged desires right beneath the tip of society's noses. As we slowly close this book of whimsical secrets and the light of our imaginary candle grows softer, let these colorful codes lull you into dreams. Dreams of red handkerchiefs twirling in a flamboyant dance, cartoons sketched on white ones imparting tickles of laughter, and emerald green ones igniting sparks of defiant camaraderie. Let these threads weave into your dreams, a kaleidoscope of colors and connotations that gently remind us of how laughter and courage can thrive, even amidst the stark black and white of societal conformities. And as you drift off to sleep, may your dreams be as bold as a red hanky, as put our colored-coded history to bed. May put our colored-coded history to bed. May these hanky tales bring you technicolored dreams and a peaceful slumber as we prepare to unravel new threads of hushed tales and quiet giggles when dawn breaks. Good night and sweet dreams, my fellow history enthusiasts. And remember, history might be boring, but it's those boring bits that often color our world with the richest shades of intrigue.